we can't overlook technology because from smart sensors to predictive analytics, tech will be front and center in shaping the future of senior living. So, buckle up as we celebrate another great season of Tips from Trestle. We're going to revisit some standout episodes and get ready for what's next in senior living. Tips from Trestle is brought to you by E-Menu Choice Point of Sale and Clark Food Service Equipment. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Welcome to the season finale of Tips from Trestle. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and I cannot believe we're already wrapping up in another incredible year. 2024 has been a whirlwind for the senior living industry, and we've covered so much ground on this podcast, from culinary creativity to cutting-edge technology to so many things in between. Today, we're going to take a look back at some of the highlights from this season, and we're also going to take a peek ahead into 2025. But before we get into our clips and looking back, I want to start with some of the 2024 highlights for the industry in general. This year, senior living saw some major rebound in occupancy rates. By the end of Q3, we were hitting 86.5%, which is just shy of pre-pandemic levels. That caps off 11 straight months of growth. But it's not just about filling rooms. As we talk to many operators and vendors on many of our episodes, we are seeing that operators are embracing integrated care models and wellness-focused living to really meet the evolving needs of our residents. And like I said, let's not forget about technology. AI tools, IoT devices, and telehealth are becoming game changers, and they're helping communities personalize care and improve efficiency like never before. As we look ahead to 2025, the senior living industry is definitely poised to thrive as demand is going to continue to surge. With 8,000 people turning 75 every day, occupancy is going to climb even higher. But here's the catch. New construction is lagging behind demand, so operators will need to get creative with repositioning existing communities and adopting innovative solutions like co-housing models and eco-friendly designs. And again, we can't overlook technology because from smart sensors to predictive analytics, tech will be front and center in shaping the future of senior living. So buckle up as we celebrate another great season of Tips from Trestle. We're going to revisit some standout episodes and get ready for what's next in senior living. Let's dive in. In our recent episode, AI's Human Touch, we said, welcome to the future of senior living where artificial intelligence is going to meet human care. I was able to sit down with Fritz Brumder, CEO of Wiseox, to explore how AI is revolutionizing the industry. We dove deep into how AI-powered tools are not just enhancing operations, but also improving resident care and supporting staff. From AI mascots to personalized care solutions, this episode was a fascinating look at how technology can work hand in hand with human expertise. If you're curious about cutting-edge innovations in senior living, this was an episode you need to go back and listen to.
We're really on a mission to build human capacity and using AI obviously as a tool to do that. AI can be so useful to help reduce stress for workers, to help give them that extra crutch and that extra push to be able to get all the work done that they need to in a day. You know, for a decade or more and more work has been placed on individual shoulders. And we know that's probably most true in the senior living industry. And what really matters is not doing the administrative tasks, but actually delivering care and spending time with residents. So AI has a lot of opportunity to help companies spend more time with their residents. We've been working with a few partners in things like HR, state by state regulations, sales and marketing tasks, nutrition and menu development. And the advancements of AI and adoption of AI is really powerful once you get over the first two or three hurdles. So I'm happy to talk more about that.
I'm very excited to talk about that. When I think about the approach that you guys take with they're not called avatars. What do you call them?
Yeah, we call them mascots. And the
Mascots.
simple way to think about it is a trained AI. So, in the world of some people call them assistants or co pilots, chatbot is not really the right term. That's kind of a different thing. But
Yeah.
our version of a mascot means that it has contextual knowledge and information that is specific to you and your organization. So WiseOx is really a system for training an AI that can be customized and tailored and purpose built for your organization or your department.
When we looked at the mascots together on a call a few weeks back, I was really impressed with that approach because you can go and train these LLMs, the language learning models, to do kind of a broad stroke of this, right? You can go out and find a chat GPT or another version to do that. But to be able to have something that's really dialed in for you and your organization, I think makes a lot of sense because everybody has a different need with what they could use it for. And so, in that vein, I'd love for you to maybe give us a couple of examples where you've worked with an actual operator and had a successful implementation of your AI mascots and what kind of impact they had for them.
Yeah, one of the obvious use cases for us is HR and operations. So let's just take your handbook, which might include things like your PTO policy, or there's definitely special programs that every organization has to increase employee retention and employee benefits. Those programs are not in the knowledge base of the general internet or in the knowledge base of a large language model like ChatGPT or Perplexity or Gemini. And so what WiseOx does is load your employee handbook, load your standard operating procedures, load your policies and all of the documentation relating to HR into a trained AI. And then the mascot gets a name. Like we have one named Joy and Grace and Noel, like spelled Knowell. That's
Nice.
for Charter Senior Living. And these mascots then become dependable, reliable team members for the HR department, which is always overwhelmed, right? Staff
Yeah.
turnover and staff engagement and getting information into the end user's hands is really important. And AI is an incredible tool to do that. It can also do things like help employees brainstorm about what the benefits are. How can I maximize my 401k plan? What are my savings options? Is there a waiting period to get into my insurance? The AI is trained on all of this stuff. And some of these basic questions, employees may be delaying because they have to set up time with their HR manager to be able to. It's not really a meeting type thing, but it's information that they need quickly. So the reason I share that example first is it's really top of mind information that makes sense why a trained AI with the context, if you compared side by side the mascots that we're building versus the response from ChatGPT, for example, ChatGPT would be a very generic response to that. And WiseOx mascot would be a very specific response to those types of questions.
In our experience matters, improving resident experience with POS. Tips from Trestle did something we haven't done before. We did our first ever live episode. So we did the podcast live for a group of special attendees that registered and signed up ahead of time. And then shortly after, we released the edited version in two parts for all of our listeners to enjoy. And so, what did we cover in this hour long, which turned into two separate episodes of Tips from Trestle? Well, I was able to sit down with Matt Steenerson, who is the CEO of eMenu Choice. And we talked about point of sale and its value and all the amazing things that it can do for senior living operators. But in part two, which is the episode we're highlighting here, we were able to sit down with a panel of amazing dining and senior living experts. Paige Hoffman, Katie Tibbetts, and Kim Ben-Dixon all came to discuss how eMenu Choice transformed their dining experience in their senior living operations. From boosting guest satisfaction to creating new revenue streams, we explored all of the many benefits for integrating technology into hospitality. So if you're looking for ways to enhance your resident experience through innovation, Experience Matters, Improving Resident Experience with POS Part 2, that's what you need to tune into for some tasty insights.
Katie, just to continue, I wonder if you could highlight how some of the flexibility in the meal plans have brought in maybe light eaters or people that you wouldn't see in the dining room as much to have those experiences with other residents in the community.
Yeah, sure. I know when you were talking earlier, Aaron, about the middle market, that's definitely us. We do have a variety of offerings here, up to
Mhm.
higher end units with a lot of accommodations and a lot of amenities. And then we have lower end units that are for our budget friendly customer. They don't come preloaded with a meal plan. Meal plans could be purchased separately, and we were not finding a very high adoption rate on the meal plans. They were a little cost prohibitive. But then the residents also were not coming out of their apartments and joining their fellow residents in the dining room because our a la carte meal prices were too high for them, especially for those with lighter appetites where maybe they only wanted to get half of a sandwich and a bowl of soup. There wasn't really an option available in the old way we were doing things for them to be able to have that type of light meal option. So with eMenu, we were able to create a light meal option for our independent residents that are on those lighter appetites. But then also we were able to really look at the way our meal plans were structured, and we were able to offer a prepaid monthly meal plan that is a significant reduction in price per meal cost. So the resident can feel good about coming into the dining room and only ordering that half a sandwich and that soup as part of their monthly meal plan. And they know they're not paying for this gigantic meal that they're never going to eat and throwing away a bunch of food. It makes them
Yeah.
feel better. It makes us feel good because we're seeing our residents come and socialize with their community, which is so important. I know a lot of us after COVID, it was very isolating. You know, a lot of residents hide in their apartments. And as people are coming out, we want to find ways to encourage them to come out. So making sure that they felt included in what we were offering was important to us.
Yeah, it's such a great point about the socialization because we know that social isolation is a huge health impactor
Mhm.
for seniors. And
For
that's one of the
sure.
reasons they move into a community, right? And so when we think about food and dining, it's a social experience, really,
Mhm.
and when it comes to senior living. And so I love that you were able to find a way to use your point of sale and work with eMenu Choice to develop not just something that maybe helped you from a revenue perspective, but really was about how can we get our residents more engaged in the community? How can we bring them out and start to build a bigger social kind of umbrella for them with what we're offering? So it's such a great story that you're telling, Katie. Chefs, community, and competition. I was so fortunate this year to be able to attend not one, but two state association conferences where they had culinary competitions and really highlighted the talent that we see in senior living dining. From Florida Senior Living Association's lead in creating the first ever state Culinary Association competition to the Georgia Senior Living Association, which was just doing their second ever competition. I got to witness firsthand as a judge, as a mentor, as a moderator, all of these amazing chefs make great plates and have an amazing set of competitions. But in the Chefs Community and Competition episode, we highlighted the Georgia Senior Living Association and their two-time culinary competition winner, Chef Manny Lasparia. Not only did I talk to Chef Manny and his regional director, Chef Alan Vasquez, I was also able to sit down with Katie Ramp, the executive director and CEO of the Georgia Senior Living Association, and we discuss the vital role that culinary professionals play in shaping the senior living culture and resident satisfaction. With stories of passion and teamwork, this episode highlights how culinary competitions have inspired creativity and are elevating dining standards. Whether you're a foodie or just love a great story, this episode is sure to whet your appetite.
If someone doesn't like their living experience, the first thing they're going to complain about is the food, and then they're going to complain about the temperature. So if we can
Yep.
control the temperature and the food, we're making happy residents.
Absolutely, for sure. So I'm curious, when you think about your role as an association executive, right? Like, you have to think about the big picture of how do you better the industry in the state of Georgia? What does an event like this do for that cause and for your association as you kind of look at the bigger picture of that?
I think part of what an event like this, and even we do an awards gala in the summer, and something like that, it brings this camaraderie piece to what we do. It builds community outside of a name tag and inside of an industry. If we can give people spaces to feel like they're partners, there's a little of the idea of co-opetition inside of that, but that they're partners, that they're doing something big and important together. There's so much value inside of that. I think our media is looking for ways to look down at a choice-driven communal living space.
Mm,
We can say, no, look at what we're offering. Some of our communities have 5-star menus that are coming. Some are catered to a culture very specifically. Some of them are catered to a diet specifically. I think when we bring people together around a common conversation, there's connectivity that we didn't even intend to happen, and
yeah.
people develop friendships and relationships that reach far past their name tag, the community that they work in, because they care about what they're doing, they're passionate about what they're doing, and they're doing important work.
Yeah, I think that building the relationships and showing kind of what you mentioned earlier about the building all of the leadership. A lot of the other state associations that I've conferences I go to and I participate in, you're what you said about the focus on like the executive director or on the operations leaders, that tends to be kind of maybe overdone a little bit. And I think from my vantage point as a food executive, having the ability to have someone participate in an event like this, being able to showcase what an association can do to support them in growing themselves and developing themselves, I think is another advantage that can't go, unnoticed.
Yeah, I think, from a business perspective, we have to offer those things. What other states are doing, that's great. That is what they need to be doing. In terms of Georgia, we're looking for the next step of what our growth looks like and our growth opportunities. We do the same thing in business, right? We look at what's the next program? What's the next way I should involve myself? How can I make this different? Or how can I offer something that someone wishes that they were a part of? And for us, that was looking at a community holistically. It is a current ongoing thing. How do we look at a community holistically and make sure that everyone from the janitorial staff to, a chef to a direct care giver is being seen and recognized for the work that they do and the contributions they're making? Maybe that's not education every time. Maybe it's an awards. Maybe it's a highlight in a newsletter. But if there are ways that we can make sure that people are seen, I think that changes the narrative for the desire and passion of someone in this space. Everybody wants to be seen.
Yeah.
And I think this culinary competition does something like that. We don't see the chefs, right? They're the guys
Yeah.
and occasionally they come out and walk, and girls. And sometimes they walk the dining room, but usually they're offering leadership in a space and it's other people that are. And so if we can give just a moment to say, I see you and you are doing something really great, I think it just offers just something special to that role.
Yeah. And I think about the shifting like demographic of like employees that we're bringing in and what, Gen Z and Gen A and kind of what their focus is and wanting to maybe be in a role where maybe they're not front and center as much and how they still can get that recognition. I think it's a huge advantage for operators in Georgia to be able to say, hey, look, yeah, you might work in the kitchen most of the time, but you're still going to be out and present and a part of the community, and we can still showcase you and your talent.
Mm-hmm.
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing, and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
Lights, camera, action. I was lucky enough at the Georgia Senior Living Association conference this year to sit down with Nathan Jones from Dash Media to explore the power of storytelling in senior living. Dash Media, they're well known for their video content and helping really discover how authentic content can transform the public perception and help create viral moments on social media for all of the senior living clients they have. With the focus we had on talking about the food-related stories that Nathan and his team has been able to capture, this episode reveals the secrets to engaging audiences and changing the narrative around our senior living communities. So if you're curious on how you can make your community the star of the show, you'll want to go back and listen to Senior Living Stories, creating viral content that matters, and get all of Nathan Jones's great storytelling tips. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about some of the strategies that operators can use around content and what kind of content works best, and just kind of tell us a little bit about what you do and how it works.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I kind of live what we're talking about is like these misconceptions. Food is often said, food is not good in senior living. It's not good in nursing homes. It doesn't taste good. Like, I don't want that kind of food the rest of my life. But when you actually go and you actually are in a community, most people walk away saying, I did not know it tasted, I didn't realize it tasted this good. I didn't realize food was actually this good. Right. And it's frustrating for me because, you know, I thought the same thing. And it's like, that gets back to why do people think that? Yeah. It's because we allow the news media to control the narrative. And the only thing the news media really shares about senior living is when something goes bad.
Right.
And so the only time that people share online on Facebook is when something goes bad. And so it's our job to change that. And today, more than ever, we have access to free platforms that allow us to share free content that actually tell the true story. And so you do have to invest in telling that story. There's ways and tips and strategies and skill sets that can tell the story better. But it just starts with these 30 to 60 second snippets of sharing what life is like really in the community, not what the news is saying.
Yeah. When you're working with a client and you're in a community, and when you probably see hundreds of like great opportunities to tell that 60-second story. How do you go about finding which ones should be first and foremost? Which ones should you start with? Like, how can an operator start thinking strategically about, okay, how do I find the right stories that tell, the ones that make the most impact for the people I want to see them?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. So, I mean, first, usually when you ask a senior living operator, do you have any good stories? They start rattling them off. They know Miss Jones used to do this and she invented this and she has the funniest story about this. And so start with those people that first come to mind. And what I said in my presentation is, you got to stop making your organization the protagonist of the story. You can't make them the hero. You got to make the residents and your team members the hero of the story. And so when you're trying to show that you have good food, you don't say we have good food. You show, who does the food impact? The resident. Okay. And
Right.
so who's going to talk the best about your food if it's good? The resident. And so sit down with the resident, have them take you around the kitchen while the cooks are cooking their breakfast, and have the resident tell the story of the food, not just saying we have good food. Here's a good picture of it.
Yeah.
We see that every day. I want to know from the people that are actually eating the food, what they think about it. And so I think from a senior living operator, there's every part of your business, activities, just living there, community. Let the residents tell those stories. And I think that's when perception starts to change a little bit.
Yeah. This last episode that we're going to highlight here of Tips from Trestle this season was one of my absolute favorites. It was episode 326, titled Mastering Team Dynamics. And this episode was all about building better teams. I was able to sit down with Seth Winder, who was a training specialist at our sponsor, Clark Pro, to dive into how DISC assessments and emotional intelligence, or EQ, can transform workplace culture. Seth has a fascinating background, and he shared his journey from public education to corporate training and explained how understanding behavioral styles and emotional triggers can improve communication, resolve conflicts, and help build trust. We dove deep and we talked about the practical ways that you can use DISC and EQ in senior living and even in food service environments, and really dove in on how we can emphasize self-awareness and proactive engagement as keys to success. So if you're looking on ways to find actionable tips to create a more collaborative and efficient team, I think episode 326 is the episode that's packed with insights that you can use right away.
So once we can identify those triggers, the better suited we'll be to actually do something about it. So practically, just like being able to name those emotions accurately and recognizing and identifying those triggers.
I know one of the things that I've been able to do, I think that makes those kinds of tense moments better, is front loading those conversations. You know, like I will tell anytime I'm in charge of like expediting or running a meal service, I'll just tell the team, hey, I'm going to be short. I'm going to bark out orders. It's not a mad or disrespectful thing. It's literally like, this is the communication style that we have to have. And I found that truly nobody has ever offended, because it's like, hey, yes, chef, you know, we need this. And it's not, we just can't have a 30-minute conversation.
Right. Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head. Like setting that expectation right out of the gate. But even before, like, you guys are on the floor for that day, when we're hiring, I think a real key component of this is hiring well and hiring ideal team players, people that are humble, hungry, and smart, and are able to work collaboratively on a team and know what they're getting into, right? So then none of that is a surprise to them, and less likely to be a trigger if there's already anticipation around that.
Before we go, I want to highlight one final episode, and that's a part of our new series, Trestle Tactics. So this year, we launched a series of much smaller, shorter, digestible episodes that were usually direct conversations with you, the listeners. We focused on bringing tactical, usable, tangible next day items to your episodes of Trestle Tactics. So that way you can listen and implement, and you can start tomorrow. And one of the things that I thought was really great that we were able to do with our sponsor, Gordon Food Service, was we were able to dial into Peak Performance, a program that they and I developed together to help their customers and their clients become more efficient in their kitchen operations, emphasizing lean management and operational excellence. It was a great series of, I want to say, 8 or 9 episodes. I loved doing them, was able to highlight and feature all of the great talent and operational skills that Dana Fillmore and her team at Gordon Food Service have and bring to their clients every day. And so I want to share a little bit of the conversation that I had with Dana on episode 322 about the Trestle Tactics series and how we implemented it and how it's going to help operators, not just from listening to the podcast this season, but being able to go back and listen to them again and again and create new and better and more efficient ways to create successful operations in their food service senior living? One of the things that you saw an opportunity with, as in your role as a strategy and solutions provider with Gordon Food Service, is figuring out how do you support customers. And you started working on this initiative called Peak Performance, which I can, happily say I was a little part of. And so I'd love to know a little bit about, obviously you got the trends driving this, or from what you're seeing, you're probably getting customer feedback around some of that as well. But how did you go about coming up with this idea of Peak Performance? How did you develop the program, and kind of walk us through that process a little bit as you developed it from kind of the start to where we're at now with it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And what our goal was, we're listening and interacting with all these amazing food service operators within the sector and understanding that they're looking for sustainable solutions for labor and cost saving.
Yeah.
And these solutions have to not only be sustainable from a cost standpoint, they also have to help with quality of care and resident choice and meeting the needs of the resident they we're caring for. So we really put our thinking caps on, and we're looking at the issue of retention and cost and how they come right together when we say truly the smart, savvy operators are really focusing on how can I find operational excellence.
Mhm.
That's what's going to reduce the full-time equivalents that I need. It's going to make sure I'm using the people I have best, right?
Yep.
And all along the way, we will be providing the residents and patients with the hospitality that we're here.
Well, that's going to wrap up season 3 and 2024 as a whole for us here at Tips from Trestle. It's been another great season, another great year. We look forward to bringing you a lot of amazing conversations in 2024. We're going to have conversations with amazing guests like Carrie Alberts, the dementia darling. And we're going to talk about an actual real live ghost kitchen at the Sharon in Charlotte, North Carolina, and so many more amazing, great things. So be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you might listen to your favorite episodes. Have a great holidays. Enjoy your 2024 in, and here's to a happy 2025. We'll see you next time. So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.